Welcome back to In Ohio Country. Today, Big Dan Wilson alongside of Dan Haehn from United Equity. We're here at the fertilizer plant in Delphus, Ohio. And Dan, there's a lot happening, even though it's wintertime here in beautiful Ohio.
Yeah, it is, Dan, and I guess it could be a lot worse with what the calendar date is right now. So we're pretty blessed and fortunate for that. So we're excited to. We're starting to work with our growers right now for planning of the 2020 growing season. We're gearing up for the prepay season right now, and there's a lot of concerns and issues that need to be addressed on a one-to-one basis with our growers. So that's kind of where we're at right now at the moment with the ag industry.
Well, I guess, Dan, the topic for today is about input costs, and especially with what happened in 2019, moving forward to 2020, especially with the fact that a lot of our farmers were left with a lot of those inputs that really didn't get used. So what are we looking at as far as those types of expenditures, and how do you see 2020 going?
Yeah, 2019 is a year that we want to forget about as soon as possible. But with that being said, if you'd have talked to me back in June or July and asked me what there was to bring out of 2019, I would have told you absolutely nothing. But I'm wrong. I've changed my opinion on that today, and I think the biggest thing that we've learned from 2019 is that we need to learn to be diversified. Not to only rely on Plan A, but to have maybe Plan B and Plan C in line. So those days can be addressed if we're forced to have to come to that point. 2020 moving into right now with trying to figure out what our rotations are going to be because of a lot of preventative plant acres this past year, corn taken out of a lot of those acres, and trying to decide what crops are going to go where and then what our requirements are going to be for those acres. But we had a tremendous amount of 2019's inputs that were purchased basically a year ago to date that did not get utilized that we are going to have to carry over into 2020. Normally that wouldn't have been a big, huge concern or an issue, but it's going to be a little tougher pill to swallow for all of us, being that especially the fertilizer industry, nitrogen especially, has dropped significantly, which is good and bad. It's good for the guys who aren't sitting on long product, but the guys who are carrying over from the 2019 season are just going to have to adjust to that. It was a tough decision for all retailers to have to sit down and make that decision to what we were going to do with those products, but it was on such a large scale across a large board that we just could not forget about those purchases that were locked in that we're all going to have to be committed to utilizing. The other thing that we need to address with growers is those preventative acres that lied out there for the guys who done some herbicide application on those bare acres or tillage, maybe even better yet that put a cover crop on there to control weed pressures. There are some acres out here, unfortunately, that did not get addressed and were overlooked and were allowed to go into extreme weed seeding situations, and that's going to haunt us. That's going to come back to bite us. And so with that being said, our herbicide programs are going to have to be addressed accordingly to that situation. And a big one that we're focusing, and we've been fighting this battle for years now, but the introduction of water hemp and mare's tail. Water hemp issues are they're getting worse and worse, even to the point of even the ragweed situation that I don't want to discredit, because glyphosate in today's practice still has tremendous merit, but we cannot rely on glyphosate alone. So with that being said, we're looking at a lot of the new traits as far as the seed industry is concerned, whether it be through the Enlist bean or the new E3 Enlist bean, the Extend soybean, or the Liberty trait. But what those do is they just give us so much more flexibility and options of trying to control some of this resistance issues that are out here that we've been fighting for years.
Well, it sounds like with the prevent planted acres and with the acres that really got planted but maybe didn't have a great return, going into 2020, our farmers are really going to have a maybe a lot more work ahead of them than they might think.
Yes, I mean, if who would ever thought we could have been planting corn in the second week of June and beans into the third and fourth week of June, and ended up with the yields that we had. And I realized that there are other areas that suffered greater than what we did, but in my little honey hole right here of Delphos, Ohio, we were very blessed and very fortunate to turn out with the yields that we had. In fact, I've had some guys who reported that they raised actually the highest soybean yields that they've ever had on their farm, including corn yields. When we first started rolling with the combines, we were seeing moistures that we weren't real pleased with, but the yields were there. And by the time we got to the end of the harvest and on our last few acres, and for the guys that waited out just a little bit, we actually seen a lot of those moistures that came down that were starting in the high 20s, and we were actually seeing corn that were coming out of the field at 19-20%. So guys were very pleased. We really cannot complain from that aspect of things. And another thing that this year is that guys need to take away from this is, if you've never carried crop insurance, you really need to look into it. And, talk to the guys who have had it and let them let you know how it benefited them and how it protects them. And it's all about risk management. So that's the best I can explain. Crop insurance was a savior for many this year.
Well, Dan, one of the things that also came up is the fact that with the late plant and with the late harvest, maybe some issues with winter wheat. What are you seeing out there as far as farmers that were able to get in some winter wheat, and maybe what kind of conditions we can expect when we get through this winter?
It's way too early yet to tell what the status is on our wheat acres that are planted out here right now. We had a lot going for us. The conditions were right. We put the wheat got in early this year. I think it's going to start stooling out early. We've got good tillers already going into the winter dormancy. So we've got everything going for us, but March and April will dictate our wheat acres. So that spring thaw and freeze situation, that'll tell the tale there when it comes to the wheat acre. But wheat acres are in this area here, we're for the most part our corn soybean rotation. We don't have a lot of wheat in this area here, but the acres that are out there, I think, will do very, very well.
And we have been seeing a pullback too as far as planted wheat throughout the state of Ohio, and probably throughout the Midwest, correct?
Correct. It's just when you sit down and you pencil it out, it's not the greatest crop as far as cash crop goes for us. It just hasn't been, and quality issues play a lot into that. It's individuals like myself. It's my job to do a better job of conveying to growers that we have to get away from the old ways of just going out and planting our wheat and putting down a starter fertilizer, top dressing in the spring, and forgetting about a herbicide application, a fungicide application, because wheat can be a profitable crop if it is treated properly. And we don't treat it the way that it needs to be treated. And that's something that we need to work on going forward. But a lot of the wheat that we could see in this area that does get planted is because of the increase in livestock. Guys need a place in the summertime to be able to haul their manure and get rid of the manure on. It may be acres that they want to ditch on. It's a great opportunity to get cover crops out there after that wheat comes off, and start addressing issues like soil health. Soil health is a huge emphasis anymore. We used to pull soil samples just to see where we were with our NP and K levels and pHs and whether we need lime or not, but that's not the case anymore. We're putting a lot more emphasis on soil samples just to address soil health, and we're increasing soil health. A big part of it is through cover crops.
Well, that was going to be my next question, Dan. I wanted to talk to you about the use of cover crops. Before we let you go, let's talk about what you've seen planted here in West Central Ohio and what you're hearing about cover crops and the utilization and maybe some of the pros and cons throughout the state.
We have the thing that we're very lucky is that we have so much available to us as far as what type of cover crops we want to do. Some guys like a cover crop that they can put out in the fall of the year that they know will freeze out over the winter, and they don't want to deal with green come spring, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's some great products like radishes, oats, and different things that we can use. And if you're in the livestock industry, you have no choice but to go through the path of the cover crop. I mean, that is your only alternative if you want to be able to do any kind of manure application through the wintertime, minus the snow cover. Once snow cover's on, all odds are off, all bets are off. No manure applications once we have snow cover. But even if the ground is frozen and we have a good cover crop established out there, we're able to make manure applications for the most part. We just have to be good stewards of that and understand and show that we care about our water quality issues. And so.
Well, Dan, with that being said, of course, our farmers out there have a lot on their plate going into the 2020 planting season. If they want more information, where can they go?
We can be reached in many ways. We have 5 locations, actually, which 3 of which are grain and feed facilities, 2 are agronomy facilities. The facility here at Delphus is one of the agronomy, and then we have another one down at Kossuth, Ohio, which is another agronomy. They can either go to our website and visit us on there, or contact us through the phones. I mean, we more than welcome the opportunity to sit down with guys. That's our passion, is to sit down and hopefully share our wisdom and experiences. And, I've always said when the farmer's profitable, we're profitable. And if the farmer isn't, nobody is.
Right on. Dan Haehn has been our guest from United Equity. As always, Dan, some great information. Thanks for joining us.
I appreciate it, Dan.
And we'll be back with more In Ohio Country today, right after this.
United Equity, Inc. is your locally owned farm-based cooperative. For agronomic services, we offer seed and a full line of dry and liquid fertilizer, as well as soil sampling by soil type, grid, or management zone to best utilize your fertilizer application. Call us to discuss agronomic services customized for you. Reach your best yields with United Equity, serving Allen, Auglaize, Mercer, Putnam, and Van Wert counties. Visit us on the web at unitedequityinc.com.